let's get into it. Rodney Harrison is going to join us later in the program with some discussion about best safeties in the NFL. And we'll also get his thoughts on the biggest topic right now in the National Football League. Just 2 days ago, there was one player who had exercised the privilege to opt out of the 2020 season as a concession to the pandemic and the concerns that players have, the health issues they may have, the family issues they may have. And it was one guy. And there were people around the league who were speculating and estimating as of Monday that the ultimate total of players who opt out would be in the single digits. Well, as of right now, there's more than 25 who have opted out, Chris, and it's been one after another, after another, after another, and a bunch of Patriots are out. Devin Funchess is out. That, I think, is one of the biggest names, even though he hasn't played for the Packers yet.
Yeah.
He was one of the reasons why they didn't draft a receiver.
Yeah, how's that draft go
Funchess
now? That draft doesn't seem as good now. Oh, no. Oh, gosh, now we don't. We're minus one more receiver. But you're right, that one, even though he hasn't played, you're right, it does jump out. Along with a bunch of others. I mean, certainly. I think the one thing we see a little bit of a trend of big guys, right? That's one thing that jumps out to me. Defensive tackles, don't know what their issues are or whatever, but obviously there's a concern there, and we've heard.
The issues are they're big guys.
I know, right.
BMI, Chris, in excess of 30, body mass index in excess of 30 is one of the risk factors for dying from this.
Right.
Right? The bigger you are, the greater the chance of a serious outcome or a worst-case scenario. So that's the motivation for a lot of these guys. Michael Pierce, for example, the Vikings defensive lineman, the run stuffer who replaces Linval Joseph, he opts out. He's got health issues. He's a big man, and now the Vikings have to look elsewhere. I mean, this is something that potentially every team is going to have to deal with, and a team like the Patriots is going to have to deal with for a bunch of different guys.
No, I know. You think about the Vikings. They lose a player, you replace them, and now you go, whoa, we're going to be – not only are we not replacing Linval Joseph, but the guy we brought in to replace him, he can't play. Now we're really thin at that position. So, Michael Pierce, Eddie Goldman for the Chicago Bears, one of the best nose tackles in all of football. That's a huge blow to their team. Star Lotulelei with Buffalo, the cold front defense there. He's going to be a big part of that, not there. And then, of course, New England, like you're saying. And, some shocking names out of New England. Of course, Marcus Cannon, we know he has the health issues. That hurts. But the ones that really jump out, of course, are Dante Hightower and Patrick Chung. Brandon Bolden, a special teams extraordinaire. One of those guys Belichick loves because he's a Swiss Army knife. He can play receiver, running back, special teams, do it all. But, man, when I think about Hightower and Chung, not a part of that defense this year, in a year where, hey, it is Cam Newton, there's going to be a few bumps in the road on the offensive side of the ball. There was bumps in the road last year. But Chung, Hightower, we've seen videos and heard Belichick talk about, they can come up with adjustments and call defenses and make adjustments that might not even been in that weekly game plan because maybe they didn't expect the offense to do something. But they know because years and years in the system and hearing Bill talk and everybody else that they knew what proper adjustments should be made. So I look at that as being some of the two shocking ones to me. Also because I know how much those two love football, and that must have been a very tough decision. But that's a tough loss for the Patriots, who are going to have to play through their defense, I would think, early in the year if we do play football.
And, Chris, for the most part, I have not noticed any blowback for the players who are making this gut-wrenching decision to sit out all of 2020. And remember, once it's official, it's irrevocable. And I'm glad to see that. Look, this is an intensely personal decision. We respect and support the ability of a player to walk away from the sport that he loves, to walk away from the money that goes along with it, to enter a year of uncertainty where you have to sit back. Remember, you've told me before how it felt to have to watch football the first year that you weren't part of football and how hard that is.
Yeah.
You're watching the train rolling away from you with no guarantee you're going to be able to catch up to the train next year because we know how this goes.
Right.
If Dante Hightower's replacement is just good enough where dollar for dollar it makes more sense to keep him instead of Dante Hightower next year, Bill Belichick's not going to pay Dante Hightower $8 million next year. Same thing for Patrick Chung. They find somebody else who can come in and get it done, and that's a guy who's – and here's where it gets a little bit dicey because on one hand, these teams need to respect the decisions made by the players to opt out. On the other hand, Chris, you know it and I know it. There's going to be a temptation for the coaches to say, for the guys who are there, you chose to be here this year.
Yeah,
you
no doubt.
chose to assume
No doubt.
this risk. You chose to go to battle with your teammates, and that, consciously or not, is going to be a feather in those guys' caps next year. It shouldn't be to the detriment of the guys who opted out, but you know how it works. It will be.
No, it will be. And everything you've said so far there and that last point, it's all true. Dante Hightower, Patrick Chung, they're getting to that point of their careers too where, Hightower's in year 9. Okay, yeah, these are two positions that we know the Patriots collect, so many players, linebackers, so many versatile players that way. Safety, they got a whole cabinet full of them too to match up against every type of guy in football. But, they're at risking at the point where, they might be, you're right, never back in the league, and we'll see where it goes. And some of the other guys, unless they're superstars, they're going to, unless they have, I think, a huge health concern, they're not going to be looked at in a positive manner. Like, people are going to respect it, but they're going to be like, come on, he didn't play. So I think there is going to be some of that talk for the coaches and the players. There's no doubt about that. It's a tough one.
Just to be clear, something that's never articulated publicly.
Right, exactly right.
The kind,
it's the kind of thing where the group of 5 guys playing Xbox, right, who are really close friends on the team or whatever. Yeah. You're sitting around having a beer, and they know, okay, I can't say this to the whole team, but these are my best friends on the team. Can you believe he's not here and playing with us this year? I can't believe he did that. Yes, some of that is going to go on for sure.
We all experience that. We all potentially engage in that from time to time. Let's be realistic. There's the thing we'll say to someone because we don't want to have the awkward interaction. We know that being candid and blunt is not the best way to go. And then when there's an opportunity to talk to somebody else behind the curtain, you say what you really think. And that may happen here. There may be that disconnect of, we really respect him. He's doing the right thing for himself and his family. Can you believe? We're here. Where's he?
Yeah.
Right? I'd love to be sitting home all year. That kind of stuff. That's human nature. That's going to be part of this equation. John Schneider, the Seahawks GM, appeared yesterday on the Peter King podcast, and Schneider was asked if he thought players were worried about that stigma of letting the team down if they opted out. Here's what Schneider had to say.
During the summer, through all these negotiations and everything, I don't think that, the football fans across the country probably don't understand how many calls, the union's been on with their players and the league and the union and going back and forth. So I think there's been enough discussion where, players are going to respect each other's feelings about opting out or going for it and playing and trying to respect each other with all the rules that we have set in place now with all these COVID protocols, because I just think it's obviously we need to do the best job we possibly can and learn from Major League Baseball and the NHL and the NBA. I've been in contact with the NBA teams, NHL teams. We have other people that have Major League Baseball contacts. So we're doing whatever we can to take the correct precautions, and I don't think players are going to have any animosity towards each other.
Apples to apples is baseball, because the NBA has a bubble, the NHL has a bubble, MLS has a bubble. The NFL can't, as a practical matter at this point, have a bubble. You could make the argument it was never practical and never would have been practical for the NFL to have a true bubble where everyone was isolated in one location. So that's what makes baseball more relevant, and we see what's going on in baseball this week. Although the good news for baseball, it looks like the Marlins outbreak didn't spread to the Phillies, even though they played them for 3 days to start the season. But they're not pressed on top of each other. They're not right across from each other. They're not spitting and sweating and breathing and bleeding on each other like football players do. That's the grand experiment when football starts. But, Chris, look, the bottom line is, as we said, they're just going to have to deal with it even if they don't like it. And it occurred to me earlier when we showed the list of the guys who have opted out. I think from a coaching and front office standpoint, you have to treat each of the guys who opt out like they had a torn ACL the first day of practice. It's the same thing. And it doesn't happen with this frequency. You don't have 25 torn ACLs the first day of camp, but that's essentially what it is. We have a guy who we know he's gone for the year, and we know it at the start of camp, and we can make a plan, and we have to make a plan. Let's go.
Yeah.
And coaches have all had to do that. It's just this year they're going to have to do it potentially more than ever before.
Yeah, they're going to have to be ready for everything. And, and not only just 1, 2, 3 guys, you're right, a whole position group, whatever it may be. I mean, yeah, hey, this is weird times. I certainly respect, the players and what they got to do. To me, like, I want to ask you personally, like, I could never do that. I wouldn't sit out football this year unless I knew I had a really, big time health issue. I understand, the Marcus Cannons and, the body mass index, certainly a real thing. I'm just saying, me as Chris Simms, if I was back in the NFL right now as a quarterback, the thing that would scare me more than anything is something you said at the start of the show. I'd be more scared of sitting on my couch on Sunday and going, damn, football happened. They're playing. It's a full year. Not that many guys are getting sick. And it's week 8, and I'm sitting here on my butt on the couch. And that would be like a nightmare for me, I at least. And I know everybody's different. But I think there's a lot of guys in football that look at it the same way, where they just go, man, we're playing football. I'm going to be there. And I don't know if there's much that could stop me other than, really the fact of just, yes, death in itself. And I had a really serious condition to go along with it. But I respect it. It's tough. And, yeah, teams are going to have to deal with this. And, Mike, the other thing I just think of is this is why, like, hey, I mean, everybody better be ready this year in the NFL. I mean, you could be the 25th best team in football, and there could be a few outbreaks with a few teams, and, damn, you're back in, the playoff contention or whatever it may be. And it's going to make, I think the competitive balance even more competitive this year maybe if we continue to have little outbreaks here and there, and, of course, guys not playing altogether.
Well, there won't be competitive balance because they aren't going to worry about that. But the reality is you got 16 teams, 7 get in, 9 don't. The chances of being one of the 7 are dramatically increased because you're right. You could be 3 games back with 4 games to play from that last playoff spot, and all of a sudden the team that's holding that last playoff spot loses 20 of its regulars,
right,
and they fall apart. It's kind of like the dynamic of the replacement 3-week window in 1987, but it can pop up at any time for any team. And a team that has everything moving in the right direction could have it all fall apart in December and miss the playoffs altogether. Or you could roll into the postseason 14-2, number 1 seed. Uh-oh, here's the outbreak. Happy New Year. Here it goes. And you have nobody that, well, not you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
you have an outbreak and you have
right.
key players gone
right.
for the division round game and you get knocked out of the postseason. I think it adds to the drama and the uncertainty.
Right, that's what I meant by it. Yeah, right.
Chris, I want to respond to something you said about that notion of sitting on the couch all year and seeing football go on without you. I wonder how many of the guys who are opting out, other than the ones who have real medical issues, serious medical issues, the high-risk opt-outs, are they hedging their bets here? Are they looking at this saying,
right,
I don't think this is going to work, and I'd rather not be part of it if it's not going to work.
Right.
My prediction is they're not going to get a full season in. My prediction is they're going to pull the plug on this thing some point mid to late September or October. Why do I want to be there for training camp? Why do I want to take these risks?
I wondered.
At the end of the day,
right,
it's just not going to happen. Or it's not going to be a full season. It's going to be a complete season where every team plays 4 regular season games. Whatever the case may be, there's too much chaos. There's too much uncertainty. I don't want to be in a situation where we play a game 1 week and then have 3 weeks until our next game and never quite know when we're going to play or where we're going to play or who we're going to be playing against or who's going to be lining up next to me. This reminds me of something Rodney Harrison told me 4 or 5 weeks ago during our hiatus. We had him on the PFTPM podcast. He said, you got enough to worry about as a professional football player. You got your job to do. You got to process the playbook. You got to know your role. You got to know how you interact with everyone else. You're constantly thinking about that. And now on top of it, you're worried about the guy next to you. You're worried about where are you going to get COVID. You're worried about are you going to take it home to your family. You're worried about all this other stuff that you ordinarily don't have to worry about. And I think for some of these guys, it may just be you look at it, and the problem is you got to make the decision now.
Yeah.
So you're projecting, you're guessing, you're speculating, you're estimating. But I think some of these guys are saying, I got a bad feeling about this, so I'm out. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. but you know what? I may be right.
I mean, it crossed my mind, certainly, yeah. Are they hedging? Are they calling the NFL's bluff? Yeah, they don't know what's going to happen. Are they, going to get, they figure – they're guys that figured maybe I'm not going to make a team this year. Who knows? I'll just collect some money. They're not going to really ask me for the money back next year. I don't know. All those things have crossed my mind, certainly. But that's a dangerous game to play, as we know, because there's some guys here on this list where I want to go, ooh, man, you're not guaranteed to ever play football again. It's going to be tough. I mean, Devin Funchess would be a guy that I would look at and go, well, you didn't play last year. It didn't end great in Carolina 2 years ago, and now you don't play again this year. Teams aren't going to be lining up to sign Devin Funchess next year. And again, I'm not trying to get into his personal life. Totally respect his decision. I'm just using him as an example of just, hey, being around football all my life, this is how coaches think. Man, he hasn't played football in 2 years. I don't want him on my team. Oh, he hasn't played football in 2 years. I don't know. Have you seen it? Is there any tape of him in the last 2 years? Nope. Okay, then I don't care about him. That's what some of these guys are certainly going to have to worry about. They're rolling the dice on that aspect of it, let alone the other part what we talked about where, yeah, I think privately you'll have coaches and players who will be a little bit pissed that guy wasn't in the trenches with them if we do have the season and everything like that. So there are a lot of factors here. And, again, I don't want to sound disrespectful to anybody who's sitting out.
No, you're not. Yeah. You're not. No. Look, here's the reality. We see this every year. When a guy gets injured and is gone for the year, it's out of sight, out of mind, and someone else steps in. All the hand-wringing about whether or not the undrafted free agents are going to have a fair shake to make the roster. At the end of the day, there's 53 guys per team.
Yeah.
At the end of it, the idea, well, Adam Thielen never would have made it onto the Vikings. Well, you know what? We would have never noticed. We would have known who Adam Thielen is. That's how it works. You have the guys who make the team, the guys who earn the starting jobs, those are the ones who generate the statistics. Those are the ones that you get on your fantasy team. Those are the ones we see highlights of. And there's always going to be those guys. And if you're not part of that, it just keeps going without you.
Right.
We saw it with Ben Roethlisberger last year. We saw it with Cam Newton last year.
Right.
That's the way it works. So for all these guys who are choosing to opt out, the train keeps rolling, and you've got to find a way to scramble back onto it next year. For some guys, it'll be easy. For some guys, it won't be easy, and it may be over. And this year that you choose to take off, a year from now, assuming the pandemic's gone by then, and let's hope that it's gone by then, we don't know what the mindset of the coach is going to be. It very well could be that these coaches have greater loyalty to the guys who chose to be there than the guys who chose to not be there, even though everyone is supporting and respecting the decisions of the guys to not be there.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. You're right. I mean, I think the ones with the real health concerns, like a Marcus Cannon who's had cancer, right? I don't think there'll be any personal, mean thoughts towards those situations. But like we've talked about, everything else, I think it's going to be a little question, certainly. And, Mike, here's something else that just – because you brought up baseball, and I keep coming back to this. And hear me out here, and you think – I know I'm crazy, but just let me know if you think this is totally, crazy. All right. We saw this weekend. Baseball's going, right? But we've had 4 teams who can't play because they've had an outbreak, right? They're going to figure out how to make these games up. It's baseball. It's not that hard to do. So, yes, that's great. But I still come back to, what if we've played 6 weeks in the NFL and you have 4 or 5 teams in a given week all of a sudden that come out and they can't play a game in week 7, right? It's everybody's 6 games in, it's week 7, and now we have 4 or 5 teams that can't play, right? And then the next week after that, it's 2 or 3 teams. How are they going to do that? And this is where my mind's going, and this is where I want you to think I'm crazy. Should we just count those as forfeits? Like, hey, you had an outbreak on your team. It's a forfeit. You lost. I'm sorry. Does that add incentive to make players not want to be crazy off the field or do anything like that? I'm just throwing this out there. I see you shaking your head no.
Because Peter King and I have talked about this, and he's written about it in Football Morning in America. I think it's more likely that games would be postponed, that they're not going to find a team at fault. Hey, you can't field a team, so you forfeit. It's not like the Little League team that only shows up with 7 kids.
Right.
This is through no fault of your own. In the middle of a pandemic, we can't stage the game because we're deeming you not to have enough healthy players to play and to protect the players who are on the field. So we're going to try to play this game week 18 or week 19. That seems to be which way the wind is blowing, with the commissioner having wide latitude to decide when a game gets postponed and when it doesn't. That's what concerns me, because that wide latitude can easily be misused, or at least used in a way that causes reasonable minds to differ. And you could have Patriots fans saying, here he is, screwing us again, making us play without our starting offensive line, but the Chiefs get to postpone their game because we have to protect Patrick Mahomes. I could see those kinds of issues come up. I don't think the NFL cares. The objective is to get the games in, and there will be, I think, a trigger that gets games postponed without a forfeit, without a cancellation. But if they can't get the games in,
that's where I just go. Like, if there's too many, and then you have one team that plays 12 games and another team that plays 9 games. How are we going to figure that out?
And we determine playoff position based on win-loss percentage. Period.
Okay.
Now, as long as it's within 1, 2, or 3 games, it's okay. But if one team plays 4 and another team plays 16, then we're getting ridiculous. But that's not going to happen. One last point to keep in mind. The opt-out deadline has widely been reported as Monday, August 3rd. The truth is this. The clock on the opt-out officially runs 7 days from the signing of the side agreement that amends the collective bargaining agreement. That hasn't been signed yet. So, right now, this moment, the earliest that the opt-out window will close is next Wednesday, August 5. So guys have more time to go to the facility, see how it feels, monitor the situations, see what's happening in baseball or other sports before they make that final decision. I think they should have all the way up until week 1, frankly, to make that final decision. Or maybe even after the first regular season game. How does it feel to go on the road? How does it feel to play in a game during a pandemic? The NFL wants that door closed sooner than later, but Chris, the reality is this: the door's not closing until at the earliest next Wednesday. So guys have 2 more days than we thought they were going to have, and if they don't get this side agreement signed today, they're going to have 3 more days than we thought, and every hour counts when you're talking about making this decision that you cannot take back. There is no mulligan. There is no, I didn't take my hand off the checker. Once you do it, you're done for the year. Period, Chris. Period. That's what's amazing. That's why I'm amazed so many guys have done it now.
Right.
Why do it now?
I mean,
other than you just don't want to show up. Like, I only want to go into the facility. I'm doing it now. I can understand that. Over the course of the next week, though, let's see. If you're thinking about it right now and you're already reported, wait until the absolute last minute. Wait till you get all the information you can and make that decision at the last possible moment, because once you make it, you're done.
Yeah, no, totally agree. That's at least what I would do. I would wait. Let's see how it plays out. Let me gather all the information you can get and go from there. But hey, there's more time for some of these guys to figure it out. We'll see where it goes.
All right, and in a time of anything but normalcy for the NFL, we have something that is very normal and very usual, but very eye-opening. The pandemic is threatening to break the NFL's back. The Chargers break the bank for Joey Bosa. We'll break down a record-setting deal for a defensive player all time when PFC Live continues right after this.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.